This is the moment where journalism, frankly, has dropped the ball. We don't have many courageous voices out here. We don't have many people who stand up and speak truth to power. We don't have many people who just do their job. Instead, they hide under this fake shroud of objectivity. And as a consequence of that, they not only don't even call balls and strikes effectively, but they don't tell the truth about what's going on. And in this question of Israel, in this question of the Middle East, we see that happening a lot. That's why I was so excited to see Liam Cosgrove. He is a journalist that did what many journalists these days simply will not do. He called out the State Department and he called out spokesman Matthew Miller over U.S. foreign policy, specifically as it relates to Israel's genocide in Gaza and its provocation toward Iran. I got to tell you, I was very excited to see this because it was one of the few moments where I got to see real journalism. Check this out.
Israel is still poised to strike Iran. And in July, Blinken said that Iran was 1 to 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. So I guess for all we know, they might have one by now. And meanwhile, in Ukraine, they've struck deep within Russian territory several times, as deep as 300 miles from the border. And in that case, we don't have to guess. We know that Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, as many as 6,000 warheads. And so one of the risks of arming militaries that are striking in the territories of nuclear powers is that one of those gets deployed and then it could escalate very quickly from there. So it's rarely discussed, but it's important to address that the nuclear risk is real, and it could very abruptly mean the end of what humans have worked for thousands of years to collectively achieve. And us today are very lucky to live with the fruits of that achievement. And I feel like we're treating the risks kind of brazenly. So my question for you is, we often hear in response to these concerns that, well, Putin, Khomeini, they're war criminals, they're terrorists, as if they're too inherently evil or immoral for us to negotiate with. But meanwhile, this administration has financed a genocide in Gaza for the last year, and every day you're up there denying accountability for it. So, I mean, what gives you the right to lecture other countries on their moral?
So if you have a policy question for me, I'm happy to take it. If you want to give a speech, there are plenty of places in Washington where you can give a speech.
Yeah, but people are sick of the bullshit in here. I mean, it is a genocide. You are abetting it, and you are risking nuclear war in Ukraine for this problem.
He said people are tired of the bullshit. Now, I will say, it took a long time to get to that question, and I was surprised that they let him go that far. But the interesting thing is, it was as he was in the midst of actually asking a question that they cut him off. Why? Because the State Department official didn't want to have to answer the question about the moral contradiction between lecturing other people on their lack of moral authority and using the lack of moral authority of the so-called axis of evil or all these Middle East nations that they demonize, but at the same time continuing to fund and defend the moral legitimacy of Israel. You can't square that circle easily. And so I was happy that he asked it. I would have probably asked him to say it a little bit faster, but just so they don't have any out. But at the end of the day, he did it. This is the first year of direct attacks. This is the first year the direct attacks took place since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. And today, for the first time in 2 months, President Biden spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu by phone. The focus of the talk was on Israel's plan to strike Iran again, this time in retaliation for Iran's retaliatory missile strike. Vice President Harris, who's running for president, if you forgot, was also on the call, but it's not clear anything was accomplished. But here's what we do know. Biden has warned Netanyahu against targeting Iran's nuclear sites. Netanyahu has repeatedly ignored U.S. warnings. And today, Israel's defense minister posted a video around the time of the call in which he said, quote, "Our attack will be deadly, precise, and above all, surprising." We're just a week past Kamala Harris saying that Iran is a destabilizing force in the Middle East. Hearing comments like this, watching things like this, it's hard to hear such comments with a straight face unless they are at least attached to an acknowledgement that Israel is perhaps the most destabilizing force in the Middle East, as we've been seeing this play out since October 7th, but certainly before that. Anyway, we're going to keep covering the story, but shout out, salute to Brother Cosgrove for telling the truth when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult.